What narcissists secretly think about you will shock you. That title alone should make you pause for a second, because most people walk through life believing they're understood, believing the people around them see them clearly. But I gotta tell you something from experience: some people don't see you at all. What they see is a mirror for their brokenness. They see a reflection of their power or their control or their insecurity. And when that person is a narcissist, you're not dealing with a regular misunderstanding. You're dealing with a trap. See, I've been around this business, around this life long enough to tell you that narcissists are masters of performance, and it's not the kind you applaud. It's the kind that wraps itself in love, in compliments, in flattery, until suddenly you don't even recognize your own thoughts anymore. That's how it starts. That's how they win. They break you without bruising you. And here's the hardest pill to swallow: you don't even notice it happening. And not at first. You think you're just being helpful, supportive. You think you're growing as a person. But the truth, you're shrinking. You're making yourself small so they can feel tall. And they love that. That's what narcissists secretly think about you. You're useful. You're fuel. You're a resource. You're not a human being to them. You're a means to protect their fragile little kingdom of lies. Now, I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it to wake you up. Because when I learned this the hard way, it crushed me, but it also built me. It built something strong inside me and knew your worth isn't up for negotiation. Not with a narcissist, not with anyone. And let's get real, narcissists don't just show up in bad relationships. They show up at your gym, in your friend group, sometimes even in your own family. They come dressed in charm, wit, even love. But underneath, they're studying you, analyzing you, finding your emotional soft spots so they can push them and make you think it's your fault. Let me say this clearly: it is not your fault. They're not crazy. They're not dramatic. They're not weak. You were just targeted by someone who knew exactly how to twist your kindness into a leash. That's not your shame. That's their sickness. And what shocks people the most is when they finally learn the truth about how that narcissist truly viewed them. Because it wasn't love. It wasn't respect. It was possession. Depowered trip. They were playing chess, and you thought it was a partnership. But every move they made was designed to make you doubt your next one. Here's the real danger: gaslighting. It's not just a buzzword. It's a tactic. It's how a covert narcissist convinces you that you're the problem. You say, "I feel hurt," and they say you're too sensitive. You say that didn't feel right, and they say you're always overthinking. That ain't love. That's emotional abuse disguised as logic. Now stay with me, because I'm gonna tell you something later in this video that can change everything. It's something most people never realize until it's too late. Something that'll help you see the red flags before they even open their mouth. But for now, I want you to remember this: you're not crazy. You're recovering from manipulation, from betrayal, from having your reality rewritten by someone who never wanted to understand it in the first place. And if you've ever listened to someone like Jordan Peterson talk about the shadow within us, he's right. But sometimes the shadow isn't inside. Sometimes the darkness is standing right in front of you, wearing a smile, holding your hand. Don't worry, we're just getting started. Let me tell you something most people never admit out loud: you don't really know someone until you tell them no. That's when the mask falls. That's when the performance ends. Because narcissists are obsessed with control, and control doesn't always come with yelling or threats. Sometimes it comes with silence, with passive-aggressive guilt trips, with that look that says, "After all I did for you," as psychological warfare. That's their battlefield. When you grow up thinking love is sacrifice, you attract people who expect you to bleed just to keep the peace. I've been there. I've been so far backward trying to be good, to be kind, to be supportive that I couldn't even see myself anymore. That's what emotional abuse looks like. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, chillingly calculated. Now let's get into how they see. A narcissist doesn't see your boundaries as limits. They see them as challenges, opportunities to test how much they can get away with. You say, I need space, and they hear, I need to try harder to control you. You say, this makes me uncomfortable, and they take it as a signal to press even harder. They feed off the power imbalance. That's what makes them feel alive. It's not about love. It's about domination. And the most dangerous type, the covert narcissist, not the one who brags loud, not the one who barks orders, but the one who plays victim, the one who makes you feel guilty for needing something they never intended to give. They twist your empathy. They wear your compassion like a disguise. And they convince you that their pain is always more important than yours, that your needs are selfish, that your voice is too loud, and the more you care, the deeper they dig. They see your kindness as a flaw, your patience as a weakness, your love as something they can exploit. That's what narcissists secretly think about you. And you're too a reflection, a means to inflate their fragile ego and silence their shame. Let me get real with you, you can't fix a narcissist. You can't love them into awareness. That's not your job. And trying to do so will only drain you spiritually and emotionally until you don't even recognize who you were before they came into your life. And that's why I talk about reclaiming your power. Because they don't steal it, you give it away, piece by piece, in the name of peace, in the name of love, in the name of not rocking the boat. But real love doesn't ask you to disappear. Real love doesn't punish you for being human. I've had to do a lot of self-improvement over the years, not just to succeed, but to protect my mind, my energy, my soul. And that meant learning the difference between love and manipulation, between growth and control, and most of all, between guilt and responsibility. You're not responsible for someone else's feelings when they use them as weapons. That ain't love. That's control wrapped in emotion. Now let me show you how deep this goes, because narcissists don't just want your obedience. They want your reality. They want the power to define it, to rewrite it, to distort it until you question yourself more than you question them. That's how gaslighting works. It breaks your trust in yourself. And once you stop rusting your own mind, you become easy to manage. You stop defending your truth. You second guess your instincts. You apologize for things you didn't even do. And that's exactly where they want you. Not because they hate you, but because they need to be above you. They need someone to dominate, to regulate their own sense of worth. Because deep down, narcissists are empty. They don't feel whole unless they're standing on someone else's confidence. That's not partnership. That's parasitites. But here's where the tide turns, and I want you to lean in on this. You can break the cycle. You can rebuild. You can heal. But first, you gotta believe something that took me years to accept. Being treated poorly doesn't mean you deserved it. It means they were broken long before they met you. It's not your job to carry that burden. You are not a rehab center for emotionally unavailable people. You are not a mirror for someone who refuses to look in one. And you don't have to earn the right to be respected. That is your birthright. Now, I know some of y'all watching this right now are thinking, but they're not all bad. They did good things too. And I hear that. I've said that. I've clung to those good moments like life rafts. But here's the truth. Kindness doesn't cancel out cruelty. A few flowers don't fix a storm, and you can't keep explaining away disrespect just because you're afraid to start over. Starting over is not failure, it's freedom. There's this old quote that hits me every time I hear it. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. And man, I had to learn that the hard way. You can be forgiving without being foolish. You can be kind without being controlled. This ain't just about romantic relationships. This is about bosses, friends, even parents sometimes. If someone constantly makes you feel less than, that's not discipline. That's emotional abuse. And no motivational speech can fix that if you're still sitting at the table that's starving you. So if you're still wondering what narcissists secretly think about you, here it is. They think you'll stay. They think you'll break before they do. They think your love will outlast their lies. But they're wrong, because you've been silent too long. You've been shrinking for too many years. And now it's time to grow, to break the chains, to reclaim your space. And once you do that, once you speak your truth and stand in it, that's when their power disappears. Stay with me, because in the next part, I'm going to share what to look out for before the damage even starts. The early signs, the subtle clues, the patterns that reveal everything. And trust me, you don't want to miss that. You ever look back at a conversation and realize, man, something felt off, but I didn't catch it in the moment? That's how they get you. See, narcissists don't break you all at once. They chip away at your reality slowly, carefully. So let's get into what you really need to watch for the early signs. Because by the time the damage is obvious, it's already deep. Now here's the trap. It always starts sweet. They flatter you, near you. They move fast talking about how special you are, how they've never met anyone like you. That's called love bombing. But that ain't love. That's bait. They're building a fantasy to hook you before reality sets in. Why? Because they know once you bond, you'll hesitate to walk away when things turn. That's not attraction. That's strategy. And they study you, like a test they plan to pass. They ask questions, not to understand your soul, but to gather ammunition. So later, when they need control, they use your deepest fears as pressure points. That dream you shared, that insecurity you confessed, that becomes a weapon when you start pushing back. They say things like, you'll never make it without me, or no one else would tolerate you. That's not support. That's sabotage. See, narcissists always hide behind masks. One for charm, one for guilt, and one for rage. And the second you challenge them, you get to meet the real face, cold, defensive, blaming. You are the villain the moment you stop playing the role they wrote for you. And if you're not careful, you start playing defense in your own life. Apologizing just to end the fight. Explaining yourself just to feel sane. Accepting less and calling it love. That ain't love. That's survival mode. That's trauma training your body to freeze when your spirit wants to run. Now I want to break something down, a tactic they use called gaslighting. That's when someone messes with your perception of reality until you start questioning your own memory. You say, you said this, and they say, you're the sensitive. You say, you hurt me, and they say, you're imagining things. Little by little, you stop trusting your own thoughts. And that is the most dangerous place to be, because when someone takes your voice, your vision follows. And when you lose your vision, you lose your direction. Jordan Peterson talks about how Ruth is the foundation of personal strength. And I believe that too. When someone steals your truth, they steal your strength. You start to become who they say you are. You live in defense instead of purpose. And it takes years to get back to yourself. Let me make this real. Imagine someone walks into your house every day and moves your furniture just a little. Not enough for you to notice right away. But after weeks, months you're bumping into everything. You're frustrated, disoriented. You think, what's wrong with me? But it ain't you. It's them. That's how a covert narcissist operates. Quiet sabotage, emotional confusion. And when you finally call them out, they flip it. Suddenly you're the aggressor. You're the problem. That's called deflection. That's the final mask playing victim so they don't have to face accountability. Now let's talk about mental health. Because what narcissists do isn't just bad behavior, it's emotional abuse. And that affects your nervous system. You stay in fight or flight all day. Your body's tense. Your sleep is trash. Your thoughts spiral. And people wonder why you're not yourself anymore. How can you be when you're living in a battlefield wearing a smile? And you gotta know this is not your fault. You didn't ask for manipulation. You didn't invite abuse. You trusted. You believe. You gave. That's not weakness. That's courage. But now it's time to give all that love and belief back to you. It's time for self-improvement that starts from within, not chasing perfection. Not trying to be more palatable for people who never plan to see your worth anyway, but real growth, honest healing, reclaiming your voice. Let me show you something powerful. Narcissists can't stand boundaries because boundaries make them powerless. A simple no to a narcissist feels like betrayal. Why? Because they see you as an extension of themselves, not a separate person with needs and limits. And the second you start speaking up, they panic, they rage, or worse, they ghost you. That's not rejection, that's exposure. They leave because they can't control the version of you that's aware. That's awake. That's done playing small. That's what spiritual awakening feels like. Not some magical light in the sky, but that quiet moment where you say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm choosing me now. That's prayer in motion. That's strength in silence. That's you reclaiming what was always yours, your truth. Now, if you've ever wondered, how do I escape? Here's the thing, it doesn't start with confrontation. It starts with clarity. Stop explaining, start observing. Watch what happens when you remove your energy, when you stop chasing, when you go quiet and strong. Because narcissists don't fear arguments. They fear losing control. And silence, that's the loudest form of power you've got. When you stop reacting, you start rising. When you stop defending, you start deciding. You don't need to scream to be strong. You don't need revenge to be free. You need self-respect. You need to stop watering people who only show up when they're thirsty. I've met strong folks who let decades pass waiting for someone toxic to change. But they never did. And that's the truth right there. Change can't be forced. It must be chosen. And narcissists rarely choose because they don't see a problem with who they are. They only see problems with how you respond. Let me break it all down one more time. They study you to use you. They love bomb to trap you. They gaslight to break you. They blame you to avoid themselves. And they leave once you stop playing the part. That ain't love. That's emotional theft. But here's what I want you to remember. You can rise. You can rebuild. You can rewrite your story with a new pen in your own hand. And there's no shame in starting over. There's power in walking away. Because what narcissists secretly think about you, that you're weak, easy to manipulate, afraid to be alone, they got it all wrong. To fire, they're clary. You're the storm they thought they could tame. And in the next part, I'm gonna show you how to armor up, how to protect your energy, set strong boundaries, and live with a mindset that known narcissists can't waste. Stay close because this is where the transformation begins. Let me tell you something I had to learn the hard way. You are not responsible for the way people choose to see you. especially not someone who's already made up their mind that you're only valuable when you're useful to them. See, when you grow up or live with a narcissist, you start measuring your worth by how little trouble you cause. You shrink yourself. You become agreeable. You stop asking for what you need because every time you did, it came with consequences. So now, even when you're free, your spirit still flinches at the sound of confrontation. But here's the truth. Healing is not just leaving the person. Healing is leaving the mindset they left you with. Let me say that again. The real chains ain't just physical, they're emotional, mental, spiritual. Makeover narcissists might never yell. They might never hit. But they will make you question the very core of who you are. They play nice when eyes are watching. They say just enough kind words to confuse your instincts. And every time you speak your truth, they twist it. Now listen, your story doesn't have to end where your suffering began. You are not a character in their movie anymore. You're the author of your own. So let's talk about how you take your life back from a narcissist grip. And I don't mean in some dramatic Hollywood way. I mean the real stuff. The quiet rebellion, the internal revolution. The moment you stop trying to be understood and start building a life that understands you. Let's begin with boundaries. And I don't mean just saying no. I mean living in a way that protects your peace even when it disappoints someone else. Narcissists hate boundaries because boundaries remind them that you are not theirs to control. They're not a mirror. They're not a pawn. You're a human being. But the trick is, they don't always leave when you set boundaries. No, they test them. They poke holes. They act confused. They say things like, "You've changed," or "You used to care more." That's not confusion. That's manipulation disguised as nostalgia. You want to reclaim your power, then learn this. You don't owe anyone the version of you they created in their imagination. And here's where the work gets deeper: self-trust. Because after gaslighting, after emotional abuse, your internal compass gets scrambled. You start second-guessing every decision, every emotion, every instinct. So when you walk away, you don't just need distance, you need detox. From the lies, from the doubt, from the fear that loving yourself too loudly will make you selfish. Let me tell you right now, it is not selfish to protect your sanity. It is not selfish to refuse to be drained. You are allowed to walk away from people who only show up when they need to feed off your light. Let me give you something practical here. Start asking this question daily. Does this connection energize me or does it exhaust me? Because energy doesn't lie. Even when words do. If every conversation leaves you feeling smaller, more confused, more ashamed, that's not love. That's a slow erosion of your soul. And no relationship, no matter how long it's lasted, is worth losing yourself over. Now look, I get it. Some of you are thinking, but they're family. But we've been together for years. But I don't want to be alone. I hear you, but let me ask you this. Is staying giving you peace or just keeping you busy avoiding pain? Because surviving around toxicity is not the same thing as living in truth. Jordan Peterson speaks about the importance of confronting chaos to restore order. That means you got to look into the storm, not run from it. You've got to face the lies you believed, the patterns you tolerated, and the parts of you that were never safe to express. And that takes courage. That takes emotional resilience. That takes waking up every day and choosing yourself again even when your history tries to pull you back. You see, narcissists rely on the idea that you'll never change the script, that you'll keep reacting, explaining, surrendering. But the moment you stop doing that, you flip the whole narrative. They no longer have access to what they crave: your attention, your emotion, your energy. And I want you to hear this loud. the most powerful thing you can do is heal in silence. No grand speeches, no long explanations. Just evolve so far beyond their reach that they wouldn't even recognize the version of you that emerges. And look, this journey is not all fire and rage. Some days it's soft. Some days it's mourning the love you gave to people who never truly saw you. Some days it's just learning to sit with your thoughts without letting them attack you. That's part of healing, and there's no shame in that process. Because this is not just about surviving narcissists. It's about becoming someone they could never manipulate again. Someone who sees their own worth. Someone who doesn't flinch when people get loud. Someone who knows that peace isn't found in pleasing others, it's found in pleasing God, pleasing truth, and pleasing your purpose. There's a quote I live by, "I'm not who I was." And that's the point. That's the mindset you need. You're not stuck. You're transforming. And every time you set a new boundary, every time you honor your feelings, every time you choose peace over drama, you reclaim another piece of your soul. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine your life as a house. For years, you let certain people rearrange the furniture, graffiti the walls, and steal the keys. But now you're changing the locks, repainting the walls, and this time only letting in people who knock with love, not entitlement. That's what reclaiming your life feels like. And if anyone says you've become cold or distant or too focused on yourself, let them talk. Because while they're busy whispering lies, you're building truth. While they're waiting for the old you to return, you're becoming someone stronger, someone freer, someone aligned with the calling that can't be manipulated. In the next part, I'm going to show you what it really looks like to walk in that freedom to live, to love, and to live without fear. You don't want to miss it, because this next shift, this is where your true power shows up. Here's the part they don't want you to figure out. When you finally stop dancing to the rhythm they set, narcissists span it. Because your silence speaks louder than their manipulation. Your distance disrupts their control. Your healing becomes their biggest fear. You see, what narcissists secretly think about you, what they never say out loud, is that you were always powerful. That's the part they had to suppress. Because if you ever recognized who you were, if you ever looked in the mirror and truly saw yourself, they knew you'd walk away. They never feared losing you, they feared you no longer needing their validation. Think about that. They gaslighted you not because you were weak, but because you were light, because you were steady, because you were love. And that level of wholeness, they couldn't control it, so they had to confuse it. But not anymore. Now you've come too far. Now you're not just surviving your awakening. And there's no going back to smallness once you've tasted freedom. This is your spiritual awakening, not with fireworks or some grand ceremony, but with clarity, with truth, with the quiet knowing that you deserve peace without conditions, love without manipulation, joy without explanation. And let's get real, when you start choosing yourself, people get uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. They'll call you arrogant. They'll call you difficult, but don't fall for it. That's just the echo of their fear, not a reflection of your growth. This is when you stand firm, not loud, not angry, just rooted, because when you reclaim your power, your silence becomes sacred. You start spending your energy on things that lift your spirit. You stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop explaining your worth and start living it. This is self-improvement in its highest form, when your evolution is no longer about proving a point to others, but fulfilling a promise to yourself. So let's talk about the final step here, freedom from emotional debt. Because most of us are carrying emotional We feel like we still owe explanations. Oh, closure. Oh, forgiveness we haven't found yet. But here's the truth. You don't know what drained you. You don't owe anything to someone who used your empathy as a weapon. I want you to say this to yourself today. I release myself from the pressure to fix what I didn't break. Because you didn't break the manipulation. You didn't create the gaslighting. You didn't invite the covert narcissists in with a welcome mat. You were just trying to be kind in a world that confuses kindness for permission. Our permission, it's time to redefine kindness. Kindness is protecting your peace. Kindness is walking away when respect leaves the room. Kindness is refusing to let your soul be auctioned for approval. You are allowed to be whole without explaining why you no longer tolerate half-hearted love. Now, I know some people listening right now are still stuck in that place, confused, exhausted, wondering if it's really okay to choose themselves. Let me speak directly to you. You are not dramatic. You are not overreacting. You are finally listening to the voice inside you that has been screaming for years, screaming to be free, screaming for peace, screaming for you. And it's your time now. And no more waiting for permission. And no more chasing people who only love versions of you that shrink. No more apologies for choosing mental health over mental torture. If you need a reason to move forward, this is it. Not because of what they did to you, but because of who you're becoming. You survived narcissistic abuse. You've outgrown emotional manipulation. You've walked through fire and came out with gold in your bones. That strength is not just survival, it's your calling. Now use it. Use it to build boundaries that hold. Use it to speak up for the child inside you that never felt safe. Use it to teach your kids what self-respect really looks like. Use it to inspire someone who's silently suffering, someone who needs to know they're not crazy. They're just waking up. And remember, this freedom doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes freedom looks like turning off your phone. Sometimes it looks like saying no and not explaining it. Sometimes it looks like standing in front of the mirror and saying, I choose me. This is not just a motivational speech. This is your map out of the maze. This is your emotional rescue. This is your permission to begin again. So what do narcissists secretly think about you? They think you're powerful. They think you're smart. They think you're dangerous because now you see them. And once you see them, they can't use the same tricks anymore. But more importantly, what do you think about you? Because the moment your answer becomes I am worthy, I am whole, I am free, that's when the game changes forever. Don't look back. Don't water dead plants. Don't play small for people who fear your shine. Walk forward with your head high, with a mind strong, with a heart healed. You didn't come this far to question your value. You came this far to claim it. We are wisdom recorder, your knowledge source. If this spoke to your soul, subscribe and like for more content like this, because your healing matters. And your future, it's waiting on the other side of one choice. Reclaim your power.